The Panama Canal is a Super Bowl of cruising. Why? They said we were going to start at 5 a.m. I got up there at 4:30 a.m. People had slept in the chairs to make sure they had the best seats for the day. Wow. Okay, this is going to be something big, I guess. I mean, I was excited. I had got up an hour early to make sure I was up there. We had to wait for the tide or something so we could fit under the bridge. So that meant we were going to start at 5 o'clock. We had gone under that bridge, I'm not sure, 3 or 4. So I missed that part. I saw some videos after people had done them. But we got under that bridge and then we got in line. And at 5 a.m. we started. I came from LA to Miami on the NCL Bliss. So that's what it was. I'm not sure, 16, 17 days, something like that. It was my first long cruise, and it was the Panama Canal, right? I didn't know anything about it other than I've heard about it and I know what it does. I didn't know how it did it or why it did it. I didn't understand any of that. So it was a lesson for me, history and in technology. They got us, so we're on a big ship, so we're doing the new canal. I didn't know that there's a new and the old. The new one is, they don't use the mules, those little trains. They use the tugboats. They push you in there and hold you in there. They use tugboats to get you in there and keep you where you're supposed to be in the locks. And that's how that whole thing works. It can do the bigger ships, is why they built the new one. And we were on a big cruise ship, so the Bliss, I must hold 3,000 plus crews, so 4,500, 5,000 must be somewhere in there. So pretty much double the size of a lot of their smaller fleet. I'm Gary Dean. I've taken 34 cruises in 3.5 years, saw over 70 countries in 300 cities. In that same time period, I also drove all over 48 states. Been doing a lot of traveling, bucket list traveling. So the history of the Panama Canal, not a historian. It was nice. They did bring on an American guy that had worked at the canal in the 70s. I think America was more involved in it back then, is why. So he was some part of the Army, American Army, and so he was there doing that. And he did a seminar just about every day as we were coming from Los Angeles towards Panama. He was doing the seminars in the theater, big crowds, lots of people went. It was very interesting. You know, it was a lot of work. I think the Americans figured out it was the mosquitoes that were killing everybody, and they had to drain it in order to make it safe for the workers, I believe is the history. You can fact check me and fix it if you want. But that's from what I remember. I was on holiday and just hanging out there, so wasn't doing a university class or anything. I know now that the canal is Panama runs it and has it, got turned over to them. So they're doing their thing with it and making all the money off. But it was, I'm pretty sure it was a lot that other countries had tried and failed to get it done, and it was America that really helped it get done. Sure, the technology of the locks, if that was American or not, could well have been, but maybe another country had figured that part out. They just couldn't figure out how to stop dying trying to build it, which was the mosquitoes. Now the locks, that technology, what surprised me about the Panama Canal the most was that all these years later, the technology hasn't really changed. In the new canal, they still use the same lock system that the old canal uses. They've just figured out how to save, I think, around half the water. Instead of it just going from the freshwater lake into the oceans, they've managed to figure out how to try to save around half of it and use it again. And they've had to do that. They've been getting less rain up there. It's one of the wettest places in the world, is why the whole technology works. They've got a lot of water to use. Takes millions of gallons, but they've been getting less, so figuring out how to save some of it was needed, and they have. So that's helping them. I guess if there's less water, they'll figure out something. You can maybe pump it. I don't know. There's always, technology's always figuring stuff out. So they'll figure it out how to keep her going. Because if you don't do the Panama Canal, you got to go down around the Cape. You got to go down around. A lot of ships got lost doing that stuff. It's very, very rough weather down there. And that's what was neat about how the Panama Canal calculates the price of what they're going to charge the ship is they figure out how much it's costing them to pay their crew, like on a normal work ship. On a cruise line, they just figure out how many passengers and stuff like that. They figure out a different rate for the cruise industry. But for a working ship, it's how much wages and how much fuel are they going to save going around, and then they figure that out, and that's a big number, and then they say, okay, well, give us 3/4 of that. You're saving money, we're making money, everybody's happy. So I found, being a finance guy, I found that to be interesting. Smart way. It's not just a flat rate of, like a bridge toll where, you've got how many wheels on your truck, this is how much it costs. No, they calculator. Let's see how much we're going to charge. Now, the experience, it's a bucket list for sure. Most people that have done it seem to have done it before. It tends to be an affordable cruise because it is so long. It's hard for them to sell that out. So a lot of people are going. For me, I did it twice. I'm on my second one right now. I'm going through the original canal for the small ships, but it's totally different experience than the big ships. So, but some people just, they like the sea days. They like the whole thing about everything, and so they go back and forth. They do it almost every year. The price is good, and the weather's good. The excitement is real. The passengers are there's enough people have never seen it that they get into it. A lot of photos. Takes anywhere from 6 to 8 hours to do it. So people are, and there's guided, there's seminars about it during the trip, and then there's the whole day of the transiting the canal. There's somebody doing the PA announcing, letting us know what we're seeing, why we're seeing it, how it's working, things like that. So it's a party. It's the biggest party I've seen on a cruise ship. Why it's so special? Well, the fact that if you cruise, you're not going to talk to anybody that isn't going to say, if you talk to them long enough, they're going to eventually say, have you done the Panama Canal? And they're either asking because they've done it or they want to do it. So it's one of those ones, if you're into cruising, it's pretty much one you have to do. If you like cruising, then Panama Canal, it was near the top of my list. It was on my bucket list, and I was very happy to get it done. I think it was my third cruise. So I got it done early out of 34. And this now is my 32nd and 33rd. I'm doing back to back. So 32nd and 33rd cruise. And I'm doing it the second time on the small ship and the old locks. So that's how special Panama Canal is. It's really is an experience. And again, even the second time, there's so much excitement about it. So the Panama Canal, I would give it, 2 thumbs up, 10 out of 10. I would say, do it. And if you can, do it twice. If you can only do it once, then I would suggest a small ship. Watching the mules, those trains pulling it through is more of an experience. Panamanians are waving, and the workers are waving, and close to the other ships going by, and they're waving. It's a longer day. It's around 8 hours. If you do it, if you're lucky, it can be 9 or 10, depending on how busy things are. So, you get your money's worth for entertainment. Get a million pictures. The cruise ship will have their photographers out there if you've got the money, and they'll get a couple professional photos. I always do, because they reserve a spot, right? The best spot pretty much is reserved for the professional photographer. Other people sneak in and out of there, and you can do whatever you want, but the best photo you're going to get is them taking your photo, and they've got the better cameras, obviously. If you're low on budget, you can always stand there, give your phone to somebody, and while they're taking your picture, you look over at your friend too and get some photos that way in the best spot, which is pretty much on the bow of the ship, eye level to the locks. Panama Canal. Would I do it again? Yes, and I did.